Hi everyone, and welcome to Genealogy 101 with Pamunkey Regional Library. My name is Verity, and I have put together this presentation and will also be presenting it for you. So this presentation is going to be genealogy basics. So this is meant for people who have never done their own genealogical research, who are interested in it. Maybe you have started, but you're not really sure where to go from just the basics. Going to be just an outline of some things. So if you're very experienced with your own genealogical research, this may not be the video for you, but it also may have some resources that you hadn't considered before or that you haven't looked at yet. So without further ado, we're going to get started. So this is my little table of contents, kind of the overarching topics we're going to go over. So number one is get organized. Make sure you have, the basic tools you need before you get started. Number two is going to be starting with what you know. Start with what you know. Again, trying to keep it simple. Try not to get too overwhelmed because, researching family history, genealogy, things like that can seem overwhelming. And you want to start small. And then three, family knowledge and public records. So when we're going to be, branching out, getting deeper into the research. And then fourth, we're just going to go over verifying your information that you're collecting. Also, I just want to pinpoint these resources. So these are what I used for this presentation. So they're also, great resources for you to check out. The first one is Ancestry or Ancestry.com. Then we have the National Genealogical Society, then the National Archives and Records Administration, and finally the U.S. Gen Web Project. So these are great places to start, great resources to use. They're the ones I use for this presentation, but there are a lot, and I will mention others. And then also, I just want to highlight the databases that are available through the library for you to use. So these are available through Pamunkey Regional Library. They can be found on our website under our list of databases. So first we have Ancestry Library Edition, then we have Heritage Quest, and then we have Ancestry for Virginians. So you can access these within the library with your library card to use for your own ancestry research. All right, so now we're going to get organized. So preparing to start your research, you may have your own preferred organization tools. You may already have, books, notebooks that you like. But if not, these are the very basic items you will need to stay on top of everything. So you're going to need a calendar or a schedule book. You're going to need pens and pencils or, highlighters if you're someone who likes to highlight, things like that, sticky notes, basic supplies, notebooks, binders or file folders, and then finally a flash drive. So then also some basic tools to assist in the recording of the information, aside from just simple notebook paper, are these worksheets. So you're going to need pedigree charts, family group worksheets, correspondence record sheets, and then for more advanced research, you by no means need this, but some people may want it, may find it helpful. There are computer software programs you can download specifically for genealogical research. So some examples of computer software programs that you can download, I've listed them here. I forgot to mention earlier, so I'm going to have a lot of links in this presentation. So if you're watching this as a video and not as a PowerPoint, you probably will not be able to click on the links. So just be prepared to pause the video if you need to write them down, or come back later to write them down. Or just take general notes so you can find them later, so you can visit these links if you're interested in this information. So anyway, back to computer software programs. So here we have listed Family Tree Builder, Roots Magic, Legacy, and Family Historian. So a note is, aside from Family Tree Builder, these all cost money. So Family Tree Builder is free, but Roots Magic, Legacy, and Family Historian are paid software programs, so it probably means that they'll have more tools and resources, but it is an investment. So, if you're just starting out with your genealogical research, I wouldn't jump right into downloading a program, but if you think it would be helpful later, then these are some good ones to check out. All right, now here are some of the worksheets I was talking about. Again, these are links, so if you're watching the video, you probably won't be able to click on these, but pause now and type in the titles, like these, titles that I've typed in here, and if you put those in Google, the sheets will pop up, or in a second, I'm going to show you an example of what these look like. You can just search pedigree charts, family group worksheets, correspondent record sheets. By no means do you need to use these specific ones. You could even create your own if you wanted to, once I show you what they look like. But these are just some examples that you can look up and download for free to print out. So first we have this pedigree chart from the National Genealogical Society. Pretty basic. Gives you space to write a lot of different family information, birth, marriage, death, things like that. And then this is a 4-generation pedigree chart. So same type of deal, but with a little more detail for writing in all of, your family tree information. Next, we have this family group sheet. So this is what a family group sheet looks like. Again, this one is also from National Genealogical Society. I believe the one before it was too. Yeah, all of these were from there. And then we have a correspondence record sheet. So if you're talking to people, if you're getting research, if you're getting oral histories, it's really good to have things like this to write down so you can cite your sources. Here's another example of a correspondence record sheet. Some of them are pretty simple, some are more simple than others. You could definitely make one of these yourself if you're savvy with Excel or a ruler, All right, and the next, a really helpful tip or tool for getting started is just to read some books. Get familiar with genealogy through what's available at the library, or if you have your own books. A lot of really good books are available on like the basics, how to get started, things like that. It's also helpful to do reading and get familiar with the basic methodology of genealogy research, because there are different types of records or different types of sources you may find that require different methods of interpretation or organization. So if you have a book like one of these on hand, just to reference, it could be incredibly helpful. All these ones I've listed here are available through the Pamunkey Regional Library, but these are just some examples. If you go into our catalog and you search genealogy, you will find a ton more. So these are just some examples, some ones that I thought were good. Unpuzzling Your Past, the best-selling basic guide to genealogy by Emily Ann Kroom. The Family Tree Toolkit, a comprehensive guide to uncovering your ancestry and researching genealogy by Kenyatta D. Berry. And then Under Every Tree, a guide to finding your roots in Virginia. So that one's specific to Virginia if your family's from here. And that one is by Phyllis Brock Silver. And then next is reference books. So a note about reference materials is reference materials and materials from PRL's Virginiana collection cannot be checked out, so you wouldn't be able to bring them home, but they can be used inside the library. So again, we have many more reference books about genealogy, but here's just a few that I've listed. Long Distance Genealogy by Christine Crawford Oppenheimer. The Source Book, a guidebook to American genealogy, edited by Sandra Hargreaves Lupking and Loretta Dennis Sooks? Sorry, I'm definitely mispronouncing her last name. Or his last name. Loretto Dennis. All right, ignore me. I cannot pronounce names. Next, Virginia Genealogy Sources and Resources by Carol McGinnis. All right, and then genealogy terms to know. So this is a packed slide. I apologize for that, a lot of information. I mostly just listed these as general terms you should know. If you want to pause it, write them down, or better yet, you can go to the website I got these from. These are from Root to Branches, roottobranches.com/genealogy-terms-explained. So there are a lot of terms and language used within genealogy research that is specific to genealogy. So some of it may be confusing, or you may not know it all. You don't need to memorize this by any means, but it is good to have a place you can reference if you're looking at a word that you don't know, or you don't understand the context. It's good to know some of these basic terms. And then the same goes for abbreviations. I think abbreviations are probably a little harder. I had no idea that NEE meant maiden name, so there are a lot of abbreviations you'll probably come across in your research, in marriage records, death records, military records, things like that. So it's good to know some of the basic abbreviations. Again, these are taken from Root to Branches, so you can visit their website to find these again, or you can pause and write them down now, up to you. And then there's also on that website, I didn't include that here, but also on the Root to Branches website, there's a common list of name abbreviations. So common names often became abbreviated in some documents. So that's helpful to be able to reference as well. And then for a more comprehensive glossary, I found that the one on Ancestry.com is really good. So you can either go to Ancestry.com and just search for their glossary, or you can, again, pause the video and write this link down, or, if you're looking at this as a PowerPoint, you can just click on it. And it's support.ancestry.com/s/article/glossary-of-genealogical-terms. All right, so now we're going to get started. Now that we have, our very basics covered, we've got our supplies, we've got some books, we've got some terms, we're feeling good, we want to get started, but we don't know where to go. Easiest place to go, starting with yourself. So starting with what you know is a loose term, because you may actually need to do a little bit of homework to figure out what you already know. It's basically just collecting the information that is readily available to you. So when starting with your family tree, you will need to identify basic facts that are unique to each individual. You will want to look at 4 key elements from various documents of your family's recorded history. These are names, dates, places, and relationships. So then starting with yourself, again, easiest person to start with, you're going to write down your own name, date of birth, place of birth, parents, husband or wife, or spouse or partner if you're married, date of marriage, place of marriage, children's names and their dates of birth, any other important dates like baptisms or anything, and then places of important events, so city, county, state, country, etc. Remember, we're taking notes. We got all our notebooks, we're taking notes. So we're gonna start with ourselves, write down all this stuff, start, if you've got your pedigree chart, if you've got your family tree, put yourself on there, easiest person to start with. And then after you start with yourself, your family tree is going to start to grow exponentially, because, with you, after you're gonna do your parents, then you're gonna do your parents' parents, then you're gonna do your parents' parents' parents, and so on and so forth. So keep working backwards to parents, grandparents, and so on until earlier generations. And then you're going to record everything you know of your family charts on your family charts and worksheets. It's okay if there's gaps. It's okay if, there's an uncle or great-grandparent or someone you don't know anything about. You don't have to know everything. That's why we're doing research. But it's important to know where those gaps are located for when you do deeper research. So after you have recorded everything you already know, it's time to review what you have, note where those gaps are in your information. Filling them in will come in the next step when we start to access family knowledge and public records. And then here we are, family knowledge and public records. So talk to your relatives. Your relatives, especially older ones, may be able to help you fill in gaps in your family history and remember things about generations that are no longer living. You may even have relatives that have already done research, that have already researched parts of your family tree and can share their findings with you. But when speaking with your relatives, here are a few important things to remember. So you want to be considerate and respect privacy. There may be things that they are unwilling to share, things they don't want to talk about. Don't push them. You should just be respectful of what they are willing to tell you. Decide ahead of time what information you're looking for and think of specific questions to ask. It's probably easy for conversations like this to get derailed or for facts to get confused within stories and things like that. So make sure you have specific questions and make sure you're taking accurate notes And then make sure to document your sources. Use those correspondence sheets, use those pedigree charts. Make sure you're documenting everything that you're learning. And then just a note to the side here is you may have to take some things that your relatives say with a grain of salt, but don't correct them, obviously. Like, be respectful of the information that they're sharing with you, even if you find out later on that it's incorrect. But, you know, if you're hearing something that you've never heard before or sounds a little suspicious, still document it, but you may find out later that not everything everyone remembers is true. It just might be the way they remembered it, might have happened differently for them. You never know. Just be respectful and keep that in mind. All right, so then documenting oral histories. So recording is a great way to, you know, document these conversations so you can play them back later on, sorry, and listen to them and see if, you know, you missed something, that kind of thing. But always make sure, I put this note in the corner, always make sure to receive permission to record from the interviewee prior to recording. That's important. You know, we want consent for these stories, you know, let them know what you're doing with it, that sort of thing. And then here's some just example questions to ask. So what is your full name? Were you named after someone in your family? If so, who and why? What about your spouse or significant other? And then what's your date of birth, birthplace, occupation? Then tell me about your parents' date of birth, birthplace, occupation, marriages, etc. Did you or anyone in your family serve in the military? Did you or they fight in a war? This is good because if you find out, you know, that someone fought in the military that you didn't know about, you could then go look for those military records and you might be able to research that way. What are some family traditions? Did you ever travel or take family trips? Tell me about your childhood. Do you have any cherished memories? Do you recall, you know, the place where you grew up? Any mementos from your childhood? You know, these are good. Recording these conversations is a good way to catch any anecdotes or memories that they're telling you about that you may miss while taking regular notes during the interview. And again, feel free to pause this video and write any of this down if you want to, or, you know, you could just watch it back later at your own pace. We're just talking about basics. All right, so now locating family documents. So from relatives, so when interviewing or speaking with your relatives, you can ask them for copies of any family papers that they may own about themselves or family members. So things you could ask for are birth, marriage, death certificates, copies of driver's licenses or old news articles that someone may have collected, for instance, marriage or death announcements, memorial or funeral cards, or military service papers. These are things people normally keep. And then Bibles, scrapbooks, and photo albums. So a note for some of these materials is that most people will probably not want to part with these items. You know, they don't want to give you their, you know, cherished photo albums, especially since they're not easily duplicated. But you can see if you could make copies of important pages, or you could take photos with a high resolution camera. So you could look at them later without actually having to physically take someone's scrapbook or, you know, family Bible. And then at home, so if you live in a home or if you have access to a home that's been in your family for more than one generation, you may already have a wealth of genealogical resources that you don't even know about. So things to look for: family Bibles, newspaper clippings, or just full newspapers, military certificates, birth and death certificates, marriage licenses, naturalization certificates, diaries, letters, scrapbooks, photographs. Note for photographs, make sure to look at the backs. A lot of people used to, you know, write dates, names, places, things like that on the back of photographs. And then yearbooks, baby books, etc. General family memorabilia. All right, so next we're going to move on to public records. So there are a lot of different public records that you can look for and a lot of different places where you can look for them. So first there is federal records. So within federal records, we're going to be talking about, when I talk about examples of where to find these things, we're going to be talking about Virginia specifically. I'm going to get into where to go, but if you're in a different state or your family's from a different state, you'll have to do a little bit of research about where to find, you know, your state records, municipal records, things like that. So for federal records, you'll be able to find court records, fugitive slave cases, which could be very, very helpful for African American heritage research, land records, military personnel records, naturalization records, again, very helpful if your family emigrated to the United States, and then federal employees records, etc. State records, vital statistics, which are birth and death records, tax records, military records, etc. Municipal records, so like county records, birth and death registers, marriage licenses, land records, also sometimes, tax information. And then also church registers. So if you happen to know where your family went to church, or if you still live near where your family went to church, a lot of churches keep these records. So baptism records, marriage, death, and burial records. And then newspapers. A lot of newspapers have archives. A lot of newspapers have free archives. A lot of newspapers have digital archives that you can look for birth, wedding, and, death announcements, things that would be in a newspaper. All right. So locating public records, the what? So just going more into detail. So I took this from archives.gov. Again, I've listed the website www.archives.gov/how-to-begin-genealogical-research. Great place with a lot of information. So federal records, the National Archives and Records Administration is pretty much where you're going to want to go, regardless of where you're from, for some information. So they maintain records that are great use to genealogical researchers. The U.S. Federal Census, which was taken every 10 years since 1790, is a very important source. And thanks to partnerships between NARA and other organizations, all censuses taken more than 72 years ago have been made available to the public online. The National Archives and Records Administration also holds records documenting military service, passenger arrival, naturalization, taxation, court actions, land ownership, and much more. See NARA's genealogy. This is a mouthful. If I have to say genealogy too many more times, I think my tongue is going to tie itself in a knot. So see NARA's genealogy section for more information. And then I've just listed the website right here. So for federal records, you're going to go to NARA, the National Archives and Records Administration, and their genealogy section. The website is www.archives.gov/research/start-research/NARA-resources. Gosh, so many mouthfuls in this presentation. All right, let's keep going. State records. So every state also has their own archives. So state archives hold records of great value to genealogists. Some of these records include state censuses, military records, bounty land records, court records, prison records, and much more. Again, this is from archives.com. All right, sorry, .gov. Oof, goodness. All right, so for the Library of Virginia, so if you're in Virginia, our state archives are at the Library of Virginia, and these are some great links and resources to use. I'm not going to read out all of these links because I think it would be a tongue twister, but please pause if you want to write them down. There are research guides and indexes. They also have genealogy workshops at LVA. They have a how to begin genealogy section, and then they also have a list of genealogical records that are available at the Library of Virginia. So those are all the links I provided. Pause to write them down. All right, and now county records. So there are many records held by the individual counties in each state. Some of these include deed records, probate records, criminal and civil court records, tax records, and voting records. All of these records have the potential for being good sources of genealogical data. Such records are normally in the county courthouses, although some original documents have been filmed by different organizations and can be viewed elsewhere. Often the earliest county records or copies of them are available in the state archives, so that would be back at the Library of Virginia if they are in the state archives as opposed to your county courthouse or county offices. Again, this is taken from archives.gov. All right, now where? So if you are in Hanover County, where the Mechanicsville Library is, you will be going to the Hanover County Clerk's Office. So I have listed their genealogical research page right here. So hanovercounty.gov/337/genealogical-research. And then the Hanover County also has a lot of microfilm so like I was saying before, older documents are sometimes put on microfilm or microfiche and then put in the state archives. So I found this link through Library of Virginia, so it is in the state archives. But if you click this link, it's a list of all the different documents they have on microfilm. And then moving on. So now we have some other places to look as opposed to the ones I've already mentioned. So the birth, marriage, and death records. Some states begin to keep records of births and deaths earlier, but for most of the United States, birth and death registration became a requirement between 1890 and 1915. So before that time, these events will generally be found recorded only in church records and family Bibles. So a little bit harder to find. Most marriages will be found recorded in county records, which sometimes date to the establishment of the county, so depending on how old your county is. But also don't overlook funeral home records, obituaries, cemetery records, and gravestone inscriptions. So you may have to take a little field trip in your research. Again, this is taken from archives.gov. And then, like I mentioned before, church records. So investigate the possibility of finding genealogical data in the records of the church to which your ancestor belonged. A few churches have records of important events in the lives of members and provide valuable information for family historians. Again, taken from archives.gov. And then last but not least, of course, are libraries, societies, and archives. So visit the state, regional, and local institutions in your areas, libraries, family history centers, historical and genealogical societies, and non-government archival repositories are all good sources for genealogical and family history data and may hold things such as newspapers, private papers of individuals, and records of private organizations. So visiting these places or seeing what they have available, via their website is a great idea. Some archives, even if they're not the state archives, could hold a wealth of information, historical societies, etc. Libraries, it depends on, your family may have already had something published. There may already be research published about your family and you don't even know it. And if it is published, you may be able to find it in a library. All right, now this is just a little note on using archives. I know sometimes people can think that archives are scary, or they don't know what to ask for, or they don't know how to talk to an archivist. They're afraid when they see very old documents, they don't want to ruin anything. It can create some anxiety. So I thought that I would include this guide from the Society of American Archivists. So it's called Using Archives, A Guide to Effective Research by Laura Schmidt. Here is the introduction. So archives exist both to preserve historical materials and to make them available for use. This guide addresses the second purpose by outlining the functions and procedures of archives and is designed both for first-time archives users and scholars who have already conducted research in archives. So the content of this guide covers how archives function, how to identify appropriate archives for your research, and how to access historical materials and research it at an archives. So repositories and their collecting scopes and practices may differ, but the principles in this guide should assist you in accomplishing your research goals at any archival institution. So if you want to download the guide, you can go to the Society of American Archivists website. They have it on there, or you can type into your browser this link, pause the video. It is http://files.archivist.org/pubs/using-archives-guide.pdf. So it's a PDF file that you can download and print out to reference for doing your archival research. now we're on to part 4, verifying your information. So we've been talking about how you're going to document everything while you're researching. So once you've done a fair amount of research, you might just have a ton of papers, you might have a ton of those charts. So make sure you are always recording or documenting your research findings as you go. Use the organizational tools mentioned at the beginning of the presentation effectively. So those pedigree charts, family group worksheets, correspondence record sheets, your notebooks, and always be recording names, dates, and sources. And then once you're at a good stopping point, you don't necessarily obviously have to know everything about your family, but once you've collected, a fair amount of research and it's organized, physically, it's good to move your findings to digital formats. So that way, better for preservation and, easier to move around with. But while moving your research, this is a good time to look for redundancies. So you may have duplicates of things from different family members. You may have different versions of different stories. So verify that all of your information matches before adding it to the digital storage space so that it doesn't become confusing. So here's where you would use your flash drive, or you could just use a computer folder, Google Drive, etc. And then make sure to cite your sources. So this may be something that, is annoying while you're doing research or annoying while you're taking notes, but it'll definitely be important later, and it'll definitely be important depending on what you want to do with your research. If you want to add it to any heritage websites, or if you want to publish it, or if you want to, look for other people who have done similar research, they're going to want cited sources. So for published sources, you're going to record the author, publisher, and page number of where the information is cited. For archival records, you're going to record the record item, file unit, series, subgroup or subseries, record group, and repository. And you can always ask the archivist on staff for help if you need help locating this information for your citation. So when you pull out an archival record, you might not know which number is the series and the subgroup and all of that stuff. So you can always ask your archivist. And then microfilm records. So record the same elements for citing textual records above, so author, publisher, page, that kind of stuff. And then at the series level, record the microfilm publication, title, roll or fiche number, and frame number. So you're going to want all the information for what is on the microfilm, like what the document originally was, but then you're also going to want the information for the microfilm itself, if that makes sense. So like say a book was put onto microfilm, you would want all of the information as if you were going to cite that book, but then you would also want, what roll of microfilm or what page of microfilm are you looking at, if that makes sense. All right, and then for more information on citing federal records, I have listed another resource. Sorry if this is information overload. I know I said it was basics, and it is, I promise, but I just kept finding, helpful things, and I wanted to include them. So here's another one. So cite your sources. This is a general information leaflet 17, citing records in the National Archives of the United States. Sorry. www.archives.gov/files/publications/general-info-citing-records.pdf. Whew. I'm going to be out of breath by the time I finish this recording. All right, additional tips. We're almost there. You've almost made it through my whole Genealogy 101 presentation. Yay! All right, sorry. Additional tips. Join a genealogy club or a society. So great for resources, but also they may already know something about your family if they're local to your area. So if you join a genealogy club in the area where your family's from, there's a significant chance that they might already know stuff about your family. So, and then if they don't, still a great resource. They know what they're doing, I, on the other hand, will see. They know what they're doing. Sorry, that was a joke. Well, not a joke. They do know what they're doing about me not knowing what I'm doing. Anyway, moving on. Focus on one person at a time. So that's a good tip. So it can be overwhelming when you're trying to research your family history. You know, like I said, your family tree will start to grow exponentially. So once you get a lot of different branches on that tree, it can feel a little overwhelming, all the information you have or all the information you still don't have. So just remember to take it slow. Focus on one person at a time. It's all you can do. It's supposed to be fun. Keep that in mind. And then check what's already been published. I think I might have mentioned this before, but you never know. Someone may have already written something about your family history. So, and it may be published somewhere. So look for that. Don't count it out. And then last but not least, think about how you want to portray this information. Is this for you? Is this for family use? Do you want other people to be able to see it? If you don't want other people to see it, make sure that you keep the research you're doing private. Like if you're using websites like Ancestry or any of those, you know, public websites that sometimes source from individual research, make sure that you're keeping that private if you don't want, you know, everyone on the internet to know the research you're doing. And then vice versa. This is a note I just thought about. If you are using websites like that and you're finding research that was already done by someone else but who is also still an independent citizen, double check their work. You know, don't believe everything that everyone's already done just because it's on the internet, if that makes sense. So yeah, think about how you want to portray your information and what you're putting out there before you get started. And then just a couple more things about genealogy at Pamunkey Regional Library. So in addition to the databases that I mentioned previously at the beginning of this presentation, you can check out our Genealogy and Local History Subject Guide on our website by going to pamunkeylibrary.org and then navigating to Research and then going to Subject Guides and then going to Genealogy. And then you can also check out our Virginiana collection by going to pamunkeylibrary.org again and navigating to Services and then going to Virginiana. And then here's my works cited. Sorry that it's so tiny. I wanted to fit it on one slide. Pause if you want to look at it. I pretty much mentioned all of these, I think, but just wanted to be professional and, you know, on the up and up, list all my works cited. So here they are. And then thank you. That is the end. You made it to the end. I've been talking for almost 40 minutes. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it if you actually watched all this. I put a lot of work into it. Anyway, so thank you. If you have any questions, if I was confusing, I'm sorry, but don't hesitate to let me know. You can email us at ask@pamunkeylibrary.org. Our website, pamunkeylibrary.org, is there. Our YouTube page is linked right there, Facebook, and Instagram. You know, check us out. Give us a like. And like I said, this presentation was made by me, Verity Allen, Adult Public Services Librarian at the Mechanicsville Branch Library of the Pamunkey Regional Library. And thank you again.